It's 7:30 p.m. across India, live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India Global. We'll get your top stories from India and the region. I'm Tanvi Taneja, and for news from the rest of the world, I'm joined by my colleague in Washington, D.C., Nick Harper. Nick, good to have you with us.
Good morning, Tanvi. It's 10 a.m. here in Washington, D.C. It's 3 in the afternoon across Central Europe. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. Aid deliveries into Gaza ramp up as ceasefire talks continue. And are commercial flights in Europe being sent off course by Russian interference? We'll have the details. But first, the headlines.
Russia warns of enormous danger if NATO sends troops to Ukraine. Kiev sees the biggest airstrike in weeks, piling pressure on its power grid. After Germany, Poland says it was targeted by Russian hacking attack this week. Russia says Berlin using baseless hacker myths to destroy ties. Israel plays down the US arms shipment holdup as ceasefire and hostage talks continue in Cairo. 8 trucks bound for Gaza line up on Rafah's Egyptian side. And campaigning for 4th phase of India's elections intensifies. Voting to take place on May 13th in 96 seats across 10 states and union territories. Russia has warned NATO against sending troops to Ukraine, saying that such a move would be extremely dangerous. This came as Moscow said it was closely watching a Ukrainian petition posted on the Ukrainian president's website that said Kiev should ask the US, the UK and other countries to send troops to help repel Russia's invasion. NATO has provided weapons to Ukraine so far, but has ruled out sending troops on the ground. Saying that it was seeing growing numbers of French nationals among those killed in Ukraine, Russia declared that it would target French soldiers if they enter this conflict.
It is notable that Macron himself explains this rhetoric as a desire to create some kind of strategic uncertainty for Russia. We have to disappoint him. For us, the situation looks more than certain. We have also made up our minds a long time ago. If the French appear in the conflict zone, they will inevitably become targets for Russian armed forces.
And for more on this story, DD India's Dasha Chernishova sent us this report from Moscow.
Moscow is closely watching any development with regard to the possible sending of the NATO countries' troops to Ukraine. The Kremlin has said that it is an extremely dangerous escalation of the situation. It carries potentially enormous risks for the entire security architecture in Europe, and Moscow will obviously be following those developments in order to provide the timely response. Moscow is also saying that the statements that have been emerging recently from the European politicians are coming from the high-ranking politicians, including the French President Emmanuel Macron and the British Foreign Secretary David Cameron, about the possibility of using the UK-supplied weapons to Ukraine against the targets inside Russia. Against the backdrop of these statements, Moscow is reminding that it has been forced to start the drills of the tactical nuclear weapons in order to, what it calls, to cool down the hot heads of the European politicians. So the Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova on Wednesday said that Russia will consider any French troops, if they are sent to Ukraine, as the legitimate target. Having said that, she reminds and suggests that the French people are not really happy and have not been consulted on the possibility of their compatriots being sent to Ukraine. Moscow is also saying that it is not in order to create the sort of strategic uncertainty for Russia, as France is saying it is, but it is to create the uncertainty for the French people. So certainly Moscow is watching closely all of those statements, and the timely response will be provided should that come true.
On the ground, Russia targeted critical Ukrainian energy infrastructure in its biggest airstrike in weeks. The strike caused serious damage to 3 Soviet-era thermal power plants. In a separate attack, at least 2 people were injured and 13 houses damaged in a Russian missile strike on Ukraine's Kiev region. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said Moscow used more than 50 missiles and 20 drones in this overnight attack. Now, Russia has criticized Germany for baseless hacker claims, warning of worsening ties over Berlin's decision to withdraw its ambassador from Moscow. Germany has accused Russia of cyber attacks on its defense, aerospace and the ruling party. The Russian Foreign Ministry said that Germany is using baseless myths about Russian hackers to escalate tensions with no evidence whatsoever.
Berlin regularly uses the myth about alleged Russian hackers' malicious actions in Germany. This is done to escalate tensions in the bilateral relations. The withdrawal of the German ambassador from Moscow is nothing more than another unfriendly step aimed at fueling anti-Russian sentiments in Germany.
Meanwhile, Poland was targeted by a hacking attack from a Russia-linked group this week, the state-run National Research Institute said on Wednesday. The announcement followed accusations by a number of NATO member states that Russia is launching cyber attacks on them. On to the other big conflict between Israel and Hamas. Israel reopened the Kerem Shalom crossing for delivering aid in the Gaza Strip. All this as Washington piles pressure on Israel over addressing the humanitarian needs in the Gaza Strip. My colleague Nick Harper is in Washington, D.C. He takes it forward from me here, gives us more on this and other stories making headlines around the world. Nick, all this as U.S. paused its weapons shipment to Israel today?
That's right, Tanvi. Several aid trucks were seen along the roads, leading to the Egyptian side of the Rafah border crossing for a second day after the reopening of the Kerem Shalom crossing. It was closed on Sunday after Hamas's attack on the crossing killed 4 Israeli soldiers. Israel said aid trucks from Egypt were already at the crossing, adding that the Erez crossing is also continuing operations to facilitate the entry of humanitarian aid into Gaza. Meanwhile, aid for Gaza has been loaded onto ships in Cyprus on Wednesday in what's expected to be the first cargo to be delivered using a US pier built to send supplies into the enclave. Once delivered, aid would be offloaded onto US military vessels and then taken to a causeway where it will be loaded onto trucks for onward delivery throughout Gaza. Cyprus opened a sea corridor in March to ship aid directly to Gaza, where deliveries via land have been disrupted by border closures amid Israel's military operations. Israel has said the coordination between allies was unmatched after reports of the US pausing a shipment of weapons to the country. Speaking at a conference, Israel's chief military spokesperson, Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari, described coordination between Israel and the United States as reaching unprecedented scope in the nation's history.
The security assistance of the United States since the beginning of the war is of unprecedented scale. I think in the history of the State of Israel, alongside this, there is something more important than security assistance, which is the operational assistance. The partnership of the IDF with the American Central Command, CENTCOM, is of unprecedented operational scale.
שיש מחלוקות ויש, הן נפתרות בחדרים סגורים באופן ענייני.
Well, all of this as shuttle diplomacy continues in the Middle East as mediators try and force Israel and Hamas to come to an agreement over the hostage and ceasefire deal amid careful optimism of a breakthrough in talks. DD India's Sarah Coates has more from Tel Aviv.
A critical few hours ahead here in the Middle East as these key negotiators, Egypt, Qatar, the Americans and delegations from both Israel and Hamas are meeting in the Egyptian capital, Cairo, really trying to hash out a ceasefire and hostage deal. While right now the CIA director, Bill Burns, he is here in Israel speaking with the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and other senior officials trying to close these gaps between Israel and Hamas. Now, according to the Americans, they believe that there can be overcome these obstacles, these hurdles that we've been speaking about for the last few months. Although the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, he has come out to say that right now Hamas's proposal is very far away from what the Israelis deem acceptable. Now, what we are hearing from Hamas also is that this Rafah operation that is ongoing down in the south of the Gaza Strip, that is complicating efforts, with the group also saying that this could be the last chance for Israel to get these remaining captives back. Now, this is certainly causing a lot of concern here on the ground in Israel. Earlier today, some of the family members of these 130 captives, they actually blocked a main highway during peak hour. They were lighting flares, holding up signs, and they were calling on the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to do a deal, do it now, and get these people home. Now, in terms of how people feel here on the ground, a poll that was just released yesterday shows that 56% of Israelis believe that bringing back these captives is far more important than any military operation, really putting more pressure on the Prime Minister, while the international community continues to heap pressure on not just Israel, but Hamas to agree to a deal with the war now ongoing for 7 months. Reporting from Tel Aviv, I'm Sarah Coates for DD India.
Adult film star Stormy Daniels testified in a Manhattan court on Tuesday about her alleged relations with former US President Donald Trump, which he denies. Daniels also spoke about the alleged hush money she received to keep quiet about the encounter. Trump has pleaded not guilty to charges of falsifying business records to cover up hush money payments to Daniels. To Europe now, and Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni welcomed NATO Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg in Rome on Wednesday. Meloni and Stoltenberg discussed preparations for the Washington summit in July, including work to further strengthen NATO, achieve fairer burden sharing, and provide more support to Ukraine. The NATO Secretary-General praised Italy's support for Ukraine in helping to enhance Kiev's defences and support their arms industry. Videos shared by the Turkish Transport Ministry on Wednesday revealed a FedEx Airlines Boeing cargo plane covered in foam after it made a nose landing in Istanbul's airport. Despite the front landing gear not deploying, the aircraft arriving from Paris managed to land safely, avoiding any casualties. An investigation into the matter is now underway. European aviation safety experts are cautioning about the rising threat of GPS interference affecting commercial flights on the continent. Finland's Finnair has been forced to suspend some services due to pilots receiving false information. Multiple other European governments are blaming Russia for jeopardizing passenger safety as part of a broader hybrid war tactic against NATO countries. DD India's correspondent Trent Murray sends this report from Berlin.
As Europe's airports prepare for the peak summer season, industry experts are sounding the alarm over new safety concerns. Incidents of so-called GPS spoofing have skyrocketed in recent months. Experts say the deliberate manipulation of satellite signals can trick an aircraft's computer systems to navigate off course, the false data overriding its real location. These Flight Radar 24 maps show the scale of the problem, the issue particularly concentrated around Eastern Europe and the Baltics. Captain Yanis Christops is the safety manager at the region's flag carrier Air Baltic. He told DD India the airline's pilots are increasingly noticing their GPS instruments being jammed mid-flight.
GPS signal is coming from satellites positioned on very high orbit around the globe and reaching ground as a quite weak radio signal. And this weak radio signal is very easy just to, let's say, mask, to, let's say, make interference, to cut it off and to spoof it. Speaking about like last 3 or 4 months, yes, we can see that this is rising.
Members of NATO are increasingly calling out Russia for what they describe as an intensifying campaign of hybrid warfare activities against European countries, including espionage, misinformation campaigns and electronic interference. The alliance leadership accusing Russia of trying to deter allies from continuing to support Ukraine. But while the political back and forth takes place, for passengers in European skies, the threat remains. Airlines have been at pains to stress that backup systems remain in place if GPS signals are jammed. But for the travelling public, it's a potent reminder that the arena of modern war can now extend far beyond a traditional front line, putting at the forefront new threats to travel that can exist as a result of our ever-growing reliance on technology and connectivity. Trent Murray for DD India, Berlin.
Well, that's it from me here in Washington. Tanvi, back to you in the studio.
Thank you very much, Nick. Nick Harper joining us all from Washington, D.C., United States. Still to come on this edition of DD India Global. China and Serbia chart a shared future as Xi Jinping visits Europe. French President Emmanuel Macron commemorated the 79th anniversary of the Allied victory over Nazi Germany and the end of the Second World War.
As India decides in the world's largest election,
we help you feel the pulse of the nation.
I am Sakal Bhatt.
I am Shubhendu Ghosh.
This election season, join us on a journey of India.
We are in Assam. This is the tea city of India.
From down south, Tamil Nadu.
Discover the colours of democracy.
Gateway to northeast of India.
Coastal state of Kerala. Watch Poll Pulse on DT India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Global. I am Tanvi Taneja. Up next, we bring you the latest on the world's largest democratic elections underway in India. So campaigning for the fourth phase of Lok Sabha elections scheduled for May 13th gains momentum in India as political leaders are holding rallies and roadshows across the nation. Senior BJP leader and Prime Minister Narendra Modi held public rallies in Telangana and Andhra Pradesh today. Addressing the rally in Telangana today, Prime Minister Narendra Modi said that the Congress suddenly stopped criticizing Ambani and Adani in this election after slamming them from the past, since the past 5 years.
कांग्रेस के शहजादे पिछले 5 साल से सुबह उठते ही माला जपना शुरू करते थे। 5 साल से एक ही माला जपते थे। 5 उद्योगपति, 5 उद्योगपति, 5 उद्योगपति। फिर धीरे धीरे कहने लगे अंबानी अडानी, अंबानी अडानी, अंबानी अडानी। लेकिन जब से चुनाव घोषित हुआ है, इन्होंने अंबानी अडानी को गाली देना बंद कर दिया। 5 साल तक अंबानी अडानी को गाली दी और रातों रात गालियां बंद हो गई। मतलब कोई न कोई चोरी का माल टेम्पो भर भर करके आपने पाया है।
Senior BJP leader and Home Minister Amit Shah attended public meetings in Uttar Pradesh. He addressed public meetings in Lakhimpur Kheri, Hardoi and Kannauj. Addressing the meeting in Kannauj, he said that people voted for the family of Mulayam Singh in the past, but this is a family that does not even come to Kannauj even after winning or losing the elections. So as campaigning clearly picks up pace in India for the general elections, Congress leader Priyanka Gandhi addressed a public meeting in Raebareli, Uttar Pradesh. The Congress leader is scheduled to attend public meetings in Tulwasa, Maharajganj, Halor, Bhavanigarh, Gudha, Tilenda, Incholi and Sudauli. Samajwadi Party chief Akhilesh Yadav addressed public meetings in Uttar Pradesh's Shahjahanpur and Hardoi. Addressing the people, Akhilesh Yadav said that Samajwadi Party is directly contesting the Bharatiya Janata Party. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar, while addressing students at the Gargi College in New Delhi, highlighted India's Vishbandhu foreign policy. Vishbandhu is a term used to refer to a relevant country whose contribution is acknowledged by the world. Jaishankar explained why India is liked and respected globally.
You have to get the governments of those countries to cooperate with you so that when people came out, their exit could be very smooth. So this is, in a way, how a Vishbandhu foreign policy works in real life, which is we had to continuously actually keep talking to Russia, keep talking to Ukraine. We contacted the 5 countries which were neighboring there, Poland, Slovakia, Hungary, Romania and Moldova. To ensure that the facilities were set up, we actually sent in each of these cases a minister and said, you will stay there, you will, it's your responsibility till the last student comes home.
More from Asia, Sri Lanka's Minister of Foreign Affairs Ali Sabri has said that the island nation's external debt restructuring process is likely to be completed by June this year. Speaking to media, the minister said negotiations with private investors linked to sovereign bonds as well as the bilateral creditors are expected to be completed by June this year.
Local restructuring is done and dusted. The bilaterals there is an official creditor committee which has been formed. They are looking at it. We have individually spoken to all the countries, including China and India. Overall, they are happy with the parameters which have been given by the IMF, but there are some nitty-gritties to be sorted out. We expect that to be signed during the month of June, hopefully, before end of June. And bondholders also, but I understood this, major progress has been made. But right now, they are negotiating with the IMF as well as our legal and financial advisors, Lassard and Clifford Chance. So hopefully, the expectation of the government is to conclude both these also by end of June.
Now, remembering Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore on his 163rd birth anniversary, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, in a social media post, paid tribute to Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore on Rabindra Jayanti today. Prime Minister Modi highlighted Gurudev's enduring wisdom and genius, which continues to inspire and enlighten innumerable people across generations. Rabindranath Tagore happens to be the first Indian to have received the Nobel Prize in Literature in the year 1913. And next we take a look at what else is happening around the world. French President Emmanuel Macron commemorated the 79th anniversary of the Allied victory over Nazi Germany and the end of the Second World War in Europe. On Wednesday, Macron laid a wreath and rekindled the flame at the tomb of the unknown soldier at the Arc de Triomphe before greeting the war veterans. Victory in Europe Day marks the end of the war in Europe in 1945. China and Serbia agreed to follow a shared future as President Xi Jinping visited the Balkan country on Wednesday. The two countries signed 29 agreements promoting legal, regulatory and economic cooperation. Both leaders boast of an ironclad partnership and said that they would support each other's sovereignty and territorial integrity. Serbia became the first European country to sign a free trade agreement with China in years. Scottish National Party stalwart John Swinney assumed office as Scotland's First Minister on Wednesday, becoming the sole candidate in the race to replace Hamza Yusuf following his resignation. Yusuf, who made history as the first Muslim to lead a democratic Western European nation in 2023, stepped down last week due to a fallout from dissolving a coalition with the Green Party in the Scottish Parliament, prompting a search for his replacement. And next, an inspiring tale of an Egyptian carpenter and artiste extraordinary who breathes new life into discarded wood. From statues to whimsical flower-shaped decorations, El Serafi's creations transcend waste. Since 2018, his workshop has been a sanctuary of upcycling, crafting lamps, statues, and making more from reclaimed materials. Inspiring indeed. That's all for this edition of DD India Global. Do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. Connect with us on our different social media handles. And for those on the go, you can download our DD India mobile app for all the latest news and updates. So we will be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Tanvi Taneja from my entire team in New Delhi. Thank you for watching. Namaskar.